Kia ora whānau, and welcome to a very belated episode of Get a Job and Get Healthy with Costas Enterprises. I am your host, as always, Alex Costas. Sorry for this being a couple of days later than I wanted to put it out on Thursday. I'm going to be honest, my head was just not in it. I was not in the right mind space. Nothing too serious about that, just, felt a bit down, and a little bit just disheveled. So yeah, unfortunately that meant that I didn't end up getting one done like I usually would. I thought I'd just sort of address what has happened during the week. Most of it, I'm not going to lie, is part of the reason why I'm doing this episode. It's about things like just lockdown stress, revelations, and also just to mention that I made another sale on my Redbubble, which I'm quite proud of. So let's go through all the usual bibs and bobs. As I said, my name is Alex Costas. I am recording this again through the car, and I know I shouldn't be, but I am. Oh well, what are you going to do? One of the things that I talk about is how you guys can contact me. So you can contact me via my email, and feel free to hit me up with any questions. doncostas@gmail.com. That's DONCOSTAS@gmail.com. You can also also find me on the social medias of Twitter and Instagram @the Kiwi Don, and also my Facebook as well, Costas Enterprises, and also my website, costasenterprises.business.blog, is another way that you can keep in touch with me. So I'll start off with the good news, which is the two sales that I got. So basically, it's one official sale, but it was two products that I managed to sell. Now, one of them was a pattern design, which I found on Canva and just uploaded. This design has had a couple of favourites before, but no one ever actually bought one. And both of the products that sold were masks. So that was the thing. One of them was a donut themed mask, which everyone loves donuts, so that was quite cool. And the second one, which is the one that I'm actually the most proud of, finally, and I'm going to do this like The Rock, finally, The Rock has come back. No, finally, I have sold one of my pocket kawaii friends, which I'm really, really happy with. And it was the one that I sold was the pocket kawaii fox, and there's a couple of fox ones that I've got there, and there's one which is waving. So that is the one that I actually sold. So yeah, really, really happy. Apparently it's coming to someone in New Zealand as well. I didn't order it myself, and I don't think I've told anybody who to order it, but yeah, I'm quite happy. So yeah, made those two designs have both sold to the same person, both on masks as well. So it does really show you that any little thing can sell. I'm not exactly sure how they found it, but they obviously did. I have done a little bit of Google Analytics recently, and also found that some of my other designs, my old designs, are starting to get a bit of traction in the way of traffic, which is quite cool, because that's a good way for me to start focusing more on those particular designs. I still haven't hit my 500. I'm so close, and I'm going to admit that kind of leads into what has been going on with me. Otherwise, I've been feeling very sort of disheveled, very just basically not so much in an emotional rut, but definitely in a downer than what would be normally. And it's nothing in particular. Like, life is still going pretty well. I've hit my goal of making $1,000 for a emergency fund, and started working on my wants fund so I can get a new phone and start my, YouTubing stuff. So on that front, it's going pretty well. My relationship's going fantastic. Even my relationship with my mother is going well. So it's nothing like that. It's just more, I think, the realization that I have been in lockdown again. Now, I know everyone's like, oh, lockdown for 2 weeks is not that bad, rah, rah, rah. For me, in New Zealand, I've actually been down in lockdown just a little bit longer than everyone else was. My manager thought, because of my health conditions and also my mother, it would probably be a better idea if I actually stayed away just that little bit longer when COVID sort of first hit. And even though I am now vaccinated, we are erring on the side of caution before everyone starts going back into work, which we should get an announcement very shortly about what's going to happen with our levels. At this stage, we are probably going to be staying at level 3 for a little while longer, but I'm sure our Prime Minister will tell us what's going on. Auckland, unfortunately, is still in level 4 for at least another week, I believe. So that's a bit of a bummer, but, at the very least, the main thing is we keep everyone safe. And I know I harp on about this over and over again, but what I wanted to sort of address in this episode is it's kind of similar to what I've talked about before about getting help, but what I thought I would do is just give you guys a bit of an idea of how lucky it is for someone like me to be working for the government. And the way I'm going to talk about that is talk about sort of the things that we have access to, which are very much encouraged by my organisation. Now, this isn't a pump for my organisation to say, come work for us, we're fantastic. Like, we are pretty amazing at MB. But basically, one of the things I wanted to talk to is when you are feeling like the way that you are, with things like lockdown and just generally feeling pretty shit, MB actually has a relationship with certain organisations, and they are organisations like, we call them EAP, but they also offer things like counselling services. We also have a sort of a health insurance which is automatically built into us, and a lot of people don't realise that when you do work for places like the government, especially in New Zealand, there are actually a lot of things that you can get access to, be it sort of like, assistance with glasses, assistances with healthcare. Now, granted, some of the things that we do have access to are also because we can be a part of a union. Now, whether you support unions or don't, that is completely up to you. Me personally, I am a big advocate for unions. I have had a bad experience with the union that I'm currently with when I was delegate, basically not getting the help from the overarching organisation, but at the same time, I still bleed red. So by that I mean I will bleed I will always be a union boy. I was growing up in a union sort of environment with my mum and dad both being parts of the union. So yeah, and I definitely, as a previous delegate of the union, I also see the advantages of that as well. Granted, sometimes it does work, sometimes it doesn't work, and it all comes down to things like the situation, what's happened, the individual, what has happened, what hasn't happened. For those that aren't aware, a union is basically there to help ensure that you as an employee is looked after, and one of the ways they do that is things like mediation between you and your employer, and they can sort of speak on behalf of you or support you to get your message across if you do need to get that message across. So yeah, it's very, very helpful in that respect, which I think is quite a good little aspect of the union. But what a lot of people don't realise is that as a member of both government and also a member of a union and a collective agreement under that government job, you do actually get things like, you can get cheaper life insurance, you can get things like cheap tyres, you've got a various banking sort of package available to you just as a government employee in general. So over here we sort of have Westpac, Kiwibank, ANZ, and Trust Bank are our main banks. Oh, and ASB, of course. And as a government employee, you actually do get some perks for being a Westpac employee. And if your money goes into Westpac, you can access things like, home loans or personal loans at a slightly better rate and so forth. However, if you're with the PSA, which is the union for where we are, we also get a banking package through Kiwibank, which is New Zealand's own sort of bank that we sort of run. So, yeah, it's all these sorts of things. But I did want to sort of stress, specifically in this episode, more so that the things you can always ask for, and this is both through a collective agreement, through the union, through your employer directly. There are things like counselling services. There are things like support for you. A lot of people don't realise that the support is there. And one thing I would suggest, and I'm not talking just about government employees in this instance, if you do personally have some issues that might be going on in your life, maybe you need to talk about it, maybe you're needing to sort something out, before you think there is no help available to you through your work, number one, ask. Like, I am a big maintainer of you should have a open relationship with your manager. If you're one of these people that does not like their manager, maybe you've had issues with them, try to give them the benefit of the doubt, unless they are doing something that is of a nefarious act. Then do try to give them the benefit that they are there to help you, because at the end of the day, if you've got a happy employee, then that employee will usually work better for you, and that sort of thing comes down to the relationship between you and your employer. And it may be one-sided, it may not be, but with what we're kind of talking about, if you don't ask, you will never know. The other option is, if you are in a position where you can't really ask and you're just not sure, then what you can do is, if you have an employment agreement, I suggest you go through your employment agreement, you go through your code of conduct, if there is a code of conduct. Now, most sort of admin roles or most sort of established businesses or governments will usually have things like a code of conduct or a employment agreement, and in there will be a part usually about health and safety or health and well-being, and I am very lucky that in my organisation where I'm with, there is quite a big push on the services that are available to you, and that if you do need those services, to pipe up, let them know, and they will get that onto you. I personally have used the services at one point. Probably when I was at my lowest, I was in a very, very negative space, and I really just needed some assistance and some guidance and some help. And so for me, that assistance came in the way of what we call EAP, which I'm not exactly sure. I think it's Employee Assistance Program, and they are external from your actual employer. They are their own sort of, they're like, for us, they're not even a part of our organisation. They sort of sit beside the organisation, but they can give you assistance and help. And I'm not just talking about counselling. Now, I did get counselling. That was how I got assistance. But there are things like, if you need assistance with maybe talking to a lawyer or citizen's advice, maybe you're going through a domestic violence, or you're going through a anything that is less than ideal, they can usually try to help you with their system. Now, of course, not every country will have EAP, but what I do want you to do is seriously consider looking at your system, and if you do need that system, do go ahead and ask, because if they can get it, get you some sort of assistance in a cheaper manner than what you would be used to, or at the very least free, then that's going to help you in the long run, and that'll take something off your mind as well. And with EAP, we used to have when I used to work in immigration, New Zealand, we used to have a guy that would come around he'd be there almost every week, every fortnight. He was very open and engaging, and he would basically just talk to you and see how you're coping, how you're doing, and generally just check in with you. And I got to admit, like, I know when he first sort of started coming around, everyone was like, oh, I don't really want to talk. Well, there was very much this mentality that you don't talk because he's going to talk to the other people. And he was absolutely lovely. Like, I ended up talking to him after a little while. Like, I let my guard down and started talking to him, and he was really, really helpful. He sort of gave me advice and also helped push me in the way that I needed to go in order for me to actually, work through what I was going through. So, yeah, I mean, that's the main crux of this whole episode is, depending on where it is that you work, if you do need assistance, don't just think that you have to get it on your own. Like, sometimes employers will actually have that assistance available to you, and it will be built into your contract. It will be built into your, your responsibilities, but at the same time, it'll also there'll be other benefits. And so when you are looking through your employment agreement, look for employer benefits or member benefits, for example. And same as with your union. Have a look at sort of what benefits you can get through your union. I know with us, with the PSA, another one that is really surprising, a lot of people don't realise, is you can actually book accommodation through the PSA and get things a little bit cheaper through booking.com, for example. Now, I don't think it is actually booking.com, but it's very similar to it. And by using a code, you get, I think it was like something like 40% off the daily rate of non-reduced cars, which you might be like, oh, well, that won't happen very often. But, if you're sort of dedicated and you book your holiday well in advance, before you know about anything, then, there is a chance that you can save 40% off the daily rate than you would normally. And that could even be during sort of Christmas holidays, a year in advance sort of thing. So there's like, don't just think that where you're working in is the be-all, end-all, and you can get nothing. Like, for example, I'm aware that in New Zealand, through McDonald's, you can actually get a qualification. So, you could get a management qualification by working there, and you gain that by working on the job. Like, I know a lot of people will be like, oh, well, it's working at McDonald's, rah, rah, rah. But at the same time, if you can get a qualification that you can then use to further your career, then why would you not take advantage of that? And that's to say, that's pretty much what I'm trying to get at here is, like, where I work, we do have an advantage of things like, getting your glasses subsidised for. So half of your, about up to the value of like $300, $350, you can actually get new glasses through your employer. And it's little things like that. You can even get cheap gym memberships sometimes. But if you don't ask or you don't search it out, you'll never know. And then, you may not like your job. Let's be real. You might absolutely hate your job. But imagine if you spent 5 years at this job, you hated this job so much, and then what you do is you follow my advice, you have a look, and then you actually find, hey, look, you can actually get something like, maybe at that time in your life, you need 4 new tyres for your car. And you find out that through your employer, they actually have a deal with, Bow Repairs or one of those sorts of tyre companies, Firestone, or... and that, by using a code, you might get something cheaper. Like, it just gives you that little bit of satisfaction, like, you know what, oh yeah, I do feel just that little bit more valued by having this available to you. And you might be thinking, look, Alex, you're talking absolute shit here. Trust me, if you don't know, you will never know. after quoting the great, Notorious B.I.G., if you don't know, now you know. Like, literally, go out, have a look, ask. Talk to your HR department. If nothing is very clear, or you can't see exactly what is available to you, check with your HR department. They're usually pretty good with that sort of stuff. Like, it's literally their job to do. So yeah, I think that's sort of where I will end today's sort of episode. And hopefully, I know it was a bit wafty at places, but I do hope that you actually take something away as like, it's okay to search these things out. Now, if you've listened to this, maybe you've worked for the government, or maybe you've worked for an employer for 20 odd years, you know all the benefits. You never know what they might have added since. So basically, don't automatically assume that you do know everything in these situations, because you never know. There might be something that they've added that, because you're an older employee, maybe you've worked there, you're like, yeah, it's just these. But then, if you don't have a look and revamp yourself, you'll be like, oh, wow, hey, I go to that gym, I can get 20% off. Wait, gym memberships are pretty expensive as it is, for the most part. Imagine getting 20% off on that gym membership as well. Like, that could just make your day. That could make your year. That 20% could be enough money for you to start saving and paying off your debt more. It's little things like that that you need to take advantage of. At the end of the day, it's not gamifying the system. It's not working the system to your favor. It's if your employee values you as an employee, then these are the sorts of things that they can offer. They may not be able to give you that pay raise. They may not be able to give you that extra, overtime that you wanted. So this is their way of being able to go, hey, look, we do value you. We do want you to stay. These are the things we can offer. Now, some managers won't approve of what I'm saying, though. They won't basically talk about this sort of stuff. And now, that's their own prerogative. If they want to do that, that is up to them. It can hurt the relationship between the employer and the employee in that instance. But if you are a manager and you do know of perks that are available to your staff, I challenge you to let them know. Like, contact them and be like, hey guys, you guys might have been through induction, because you might have people that have been through induction like 5 years ago, and in that time maybe they've added something extra, but they don't know because maybe they don't read the newsletter, or maybe your intranet site or internet site that you guys have all your stuff on hasn't been updated, or they just don't log in. Let's be real, people sometimes don't look at that stuff. So imagine that they get an email from you guys like, hey, just giving you guys a heads up that you can all get 40% off, food at Trader Joe's. I'm joking here. Probably cheap enough as it is. I'm not exactly sure. But you know what I mean? Like, if you're an employee and you get that email from your boss, you're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Thank you. And that could just make someone's day. Let alone if you're the person that receives it and you go, wow, hey, that helps me do this, or that allows me to do this. Imagine if you find that you can get your haircut 20% cheaper. Now, for guys, that's like, what? You mean like $12? No, we're talking more so the women who have to pay like $200 to $300 for their hair. 20% of that isn't bad. It's going to get a little bit cheaper. But unless you ask, or unless you do the research, you will never know. So take that away, and I would love to hear what kind of benefits you find out. Flick me an email, let me know. Hey, Alex, I managed to find out that I can get 20% off at Disney World, and whatever, like anything like that. I would love to hear, because it's a great way for me to learn more about how other businesses offer perks to their others. And if you are an employer and you're going, hey, what can I do? How do I get these sorts of perks into my business? Hit me up. We might be able to talk about how you can approach some of these other businesses and what services you can offer, so that you can create sort of a deal. I'm happy to help out with that sort of stuff as a sort of a consultant sort of thing. I will gladly do that for free and let people know. It's just being able to actually take that time, think outside the box and go, look, I may not be able to give them a pay rise, but maybe I can get them this. Like, if you've got a good relationship with, for example, Starbucks. Say, for example, you've got a good relationship with the local Starbucks. Maybe they can give one free coffee every sort of six times they come in and they show their student ID, whatever, or their employee ID, whatever. It's all in the interpretation of what it is that you do. It's all in the way that you research this stuff, and it's also in the way that if you're an employer, how you manage it. Like, are you telling your staff about these things, or do you just assume that all of these things are up on the website so your employees will know about it? I can tell you right now, some of your employees probably aren't reading the website. They probably don't know. And if it's been a while since they've been inducted, then that sort of stuff probably isn't covered anywhere else, unless there's news articles or internet news articles which state, hey, look, this is the latest thing coming to us from, Chick-fil-A, for example. All those sorts of things. People will only know about them when they're told about them. So be that employee that tells your other employees, hey guys, not sure if you knew, but did you guys know that we could get this? And by doing that sort of things, you sort of start to build a bit more of a community, build a bit more of a networking between you and either other employees or your employer. And same as if you're an employer, it builds sort of that relationship between you and an employee. I'm not saying it's going to break bridges, but you never know what that one little thing that person hears that goes, wow, oh, that's really cool. And it just gives them that little bit of pride to be working in a place where they can get that. So yeah, I'd be really keen to hear from you guys. What does your employee offer? And you know what? If they offer nothing, let me know. Just say, hey, look, they don't offer anything. It's like, well, okay, where do you work? What's going on? Like, give me a bit of background as to, how long have you been working for them? Have they ever raised anything like that? Like, it'd be good to hear. And, if you want to flick me through your employment agreement, maybe you're a little bit bothered by looking at it. You don't exactly know what you're looking for. You can send it through to me with a couple of questions and I can have a look at it and we can go through it together and, try to work out what's going on. Now, if your employer doesn't actually offer anything, then, while this podcast may feel a bit like, oh, well, I'm shit out of luck, at least take away from something that maybe if no one is actually, if there is nothing there from your employer, maybe that's something that you can come to the table with. What could you potentially offer to your employer if they build a relationship with another business? Could you, if you guys, say for example, you guys get a food truck that comes outside your business every day. Could they get a $5 coupon off after every 10 meal? Could they get a free meal after every 10 meal? That's not on you to do the negotiation for that. But you could raise the idea. And if they turn around and say, oh, no, that's not something we would ever do, it could be done with this, it's like, okay, well, what other things could be potentially looked at? Now, if they say, nothing, we can't work with anybody, rah, 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 you're up a creek without a paddle. I'm not going to lie. There are going to be times and there are going to be employers where they will be like, look, we just can't afford to do it, or we can't afford to do this. But you never know. They could go, well, look, what about we give out a vouchers things, or we give out a to be paid sort of thing. There are ways that they could potentially get around things. Not saying that, every employer will allow this. Some employers just won't. If you do work for a place where they don't allow anything like this, they don't really value you, then you might want to start thinking more about why are you working there. Is it worth staying there if you're not getting 1, any perks, 2, any pay increases, 3, you're not happy with the employer or the employees that you work with? It can raise those sorts of questions. So, take your time, have a read through, let me know. I'd really be keen to know what you guys are able to get. And it might be nothing. It could be like, here's a big no prize thank you. It's like, well, if that's what it is, that's what it is. But at the same time, there's nothing stopping you from, suggesting things to your employer about what could be used. So yeah, I'd really be keen to hear from you and know what you guys think. As always, I love you guys. Thank you for listening. I really, really, really and truly appreciate you so much for listening. And as always, good luck.